Welcome to another episode of the SpeakEZ Podcast, powered by hireEZ, where we explore the dynamic world of talent acquisition with industry leaders. I'm your host, Dan Harton, and today we're in for a treat as we sit down with Junius Currier, Director of Talent Acquisition and Sourcing Operations at Maximus. He's a four-time SourceCon presenter, four-time HRTX presenter, and today we dive deep into Junius's background and journey exploring the roles he has taken in talent acquisition, the strategy, the collaboration across different departments, and achieving remarkable milestones. So without further ado, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Daniel. Appreciate it.
We always start every single podcast with this basic question. Can you share a little bit about your journey into the world of recruiting, talent acquisition, and what really initially sparked your interest in the field and led you become a recruiting thought leader today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for me, I didn't have I guess you would consider maybe the standard entry into recruiting, but it's pretty interesting because even with other individuals in the industry I've talked to, I think we all kind of have a very unique path. But I know sometimes when people think of how they got into recruiting, they usually think of, I've worked for a staffing agency and then I got into in-house recruiting, that sort of thing. And my path was definitely not that. So my path was heavily sales. I was in sales for my first 10 years of a career path, and then migrated into higher education, working in admissions, and then kind of making that a career path that I was going to go down. Got into a director level role in that realm of recruiting, students to go to a university through just connections, serendipity, I would say. One of the vice presidents of one of the universities that I worked at, his son happened to be a HR director for one of the largest commercial mechanical contractors in the nation. And he asked if I had ever considered getting into recruiting for talent acquisition, recruiting people for jobs as opposed to recruiting for colleges. Something that always resonated with me as I was trying to figure out hey, what I want to do with my career and my life was, I really enjoyed helping people and I really wanted to feel fulfillment in terms of I want what I do to bring impact, a positive impact to a person, and not just do I get a good commission check? Do I get a bonus? Or I just wanted to feel like whatever I did had a lasting impact. I actually jumped at the opportunity. It was more of a lateral for me at that point in time in terms of some people would ever say, maybe even a step back. But what intrigued me about it was the fact that I was going to be helping people find jobs. And so when I think about what are the biggest decisions that people make in their lives, where they live, are they going to get married? Are they going to have, children? And up there in the top 5 is probably what job or career they're going to have. That's actually something I really talk about even now with teams that I manage is never forget how big of a deal it is for someone to make a job change. Something about that just really resonated with me. So that's how I into recruiting. And that's that entry into the world of talent acquisition.
Tell us a little bit about what you're currently doing right now. You're at Maximus, the Director of Talent Acquisition. How did you get to that point?
Yeah, so my role right now, I'm the Director of Talent Acquisition and Sourcing Operations. So I'm in for IT recruitment specifically. The organization I work for, Maximus, organization. So they have a couple different markets, but I support specifically their IT segment. And I have the opportunity to work with 2 teams, one full life cycle team that's focused on the technical recruitment, and then the sourcing team that focuses on providing pipelines across all of the IT recruitment operations. That's currently what I'm doing. So responsible for leading strategy and implementation of company-wide efforts as it relates to sourcing, as well as driving full life cycle recruitment for the specific segment that we have, which is technology consulting services, and helping to manage the team to put them in a position to be successful, or meeting with vendors to make sure we have the latest and greatest tools. And also evaluating our recruitment marketing strategy, evaluating, hey, where are we at from a training perspective, competency perspective, evaluating performance and metrics of the operation to ensure that results are aligning with the business objectives. And that's for both the sourcing and the full life cycle side. So between both of those, the days are pretty busy and fast paced, and I have a lot on my plate, which I enjoy.
The cool thing about your background is not, like you said, it's not as traditional, growing up the ranks of agency, going to in-house, then going to a leadership position. You talked on sales, you talked on education and teaching. And it seems like you put those components back into your leadership style with your recruiting teams that you manage. Walk us through some of the experiences that you take from previous careers and how do you implement it now into your everyday workflow?
Yeah, there's definitely correlation there for sure. Having a sales background has been pretty impactful. Just understanding how to uncover objections, candidates, understanding the science behind trying to uncover what are people's motivations for making their decisions. What are their reasons? And I think that's super important when you're a recruiter. You have to have the ability to be able to ask the right questions to get the information that you need in order to understand what's their motivation, what are they concerned about, and how does my organization's opportunity align with helping this individual meet their objectives. And the question is if you can figure out if there's alignment there, are you solving the problem that this individual has with, where they're at in their career, whether it's they're looking for a new opportunity, maybe they're dissatisfied, whatever the case may be. Does your organization offer the solution? And the question is you have to have the ability to ask questions in order to gain that information to then be able to present a solution. So in sales, when you're out cold calling and you're trying to find out what are the pain points of that organization for whatever product you're selling, does the product that you're selling meet those needs? And are you then, from that information, being able to present a solution to help that organization to move forward? So there's the correlation there. With higher education, you're talking about a life-changing decision. Someone saying, hey, I want to join your college, talking about investing $40,000 to $100,000 in as an investment in their future. So when you talk about someone jumping from maybe an organization, especially in the clear sector, many of the people that we talk to, I'd say 90+% of the people that we talk to are gainfully employed. So when we talk to them, it's really a matter of finding out, hey, what are some areas of opportunity that they're looking to explore in order to move forward in their career? But the fact remains is that human behavior states that it's easier for you to stay where you're comfortable than it is to jump to a position of uncertainty, right? And so it's the same kind of conversation, which is providing evidence of why making this move is worth the risk of the unknown. Because, generally speaking, they'll always revert back to what they feel most comfortable with. So even if they're unhappy in all elements, unless you provide enough evidence that says, here's why you should move forward, even though you're uncertain, here's why you should move forward and forego where you're comfortable to take on this new opportunity, unless you provide enough reasons as to why you present them with enough data to say, hey, let's move past, what most people would normally say, hey, I like that role, but you know what? My boss is super nice. I have great relationships with my coworkers. So it's the same kind of thing. Like when I was presenting to people with higher education, why they should invest, we provide data like, hey, on average, if you get a 4-year degree, this is how much money you can expect to make more in your career versus someone who does not pursue a degree. And all of that data was just to provide them with some information that could help them to move past the stigma of, I'm about to make a change and I don't know how it's going to, I don't know the outcome. Right. And so I think sometimes people kind of forget how big life-changing decisions these are. And so having had that foundation to understand what that process is like, what that psychological process is for, whether it was when I was talking to a prospective student or talking to a candidate, and kind of being able to kind of guide them along and not being like a used car salesman about it. It's really just about understanding where they're coming from. And there's been times I've had to tell people, you know what, it sounds like, hey, you should make a move, but I'm not quite sure we're the right fit for you because of this and this and this. And that builds trust. You build relationships there, and maybe down the road, there will be opportunities. And that kind of goes back to the ethos I was talking about earlier about really wanting to help people and not making it about being self-serving, but really making it about how can I make an impact? And the way you can make an impact is really by asking the right questions. So that's really the correlation that I think has helps me from a messaging perspective, from a candidate perspective of being able to gain trust, to be able to overcome objections. And those things come into play when it comes time to making offers. You have so much information about this individual that you've earned the trust to be able to say to someone when they get a little nervous and, well, I need to kind of think about it. Or maybe they come back and say, I really want to take it, but I'm just not sure. You can have an honest conversation about, hey, let's go over the reasons that we discussed of why you're interested. And then tell me, is there a reason why you're still hesitant? Is there anything that we hadn't discussed that we should discuss that could help you either decide that you want to make the move or that you should stay? Because ultimately, people make decisions based on their own reasons. It could be, did they talk
And
about
if you
it?
don't know those reasons, you don't know how to combat those reasons. And I love the approach because you're taking your sales background on a sales process from start to finish, asking those qualified questions, understanding those answers, saving those answers, and teaching your recruiters to utilize the answers that you already have?
And obviously, there's tons of resources out there that are available, right? Whether it's through SourceCon, whether if you're local to the DC market, Recruit DC, or whether it's through hireEZ, there's a ton of resources. I get asked this question all the time, and even from members I've had the chance to mentor and lead. They'll say, "Hey, how do you know so much about sourcing?" I'll just say, "Just research." I mean, it sounds very simple, but literally, I just took the time that it takes to get on my Google machine and find out, and I sought out who are subject matter experts when I was getting started, follow their social media profiles. I went on YouTube and I looked at videos about how to find people's email addresses, and I learned about thought leaders in the industry and followed them, attended free webinars. I did all the things that it takes for someone to invest in themselves to be able to get to a certain level to then earn the right to go to my boss at the time and say, "Hey, I'd like to attend these paid trainings." And then they sent me to paid training based on my production and based upon my own professional development that I invested in myself. From there, I got certified and continued to grow my knowledge base. And then I continued to network and meet people and just talk shop, because it was never about, well, I wanted to, I want to network and I want to make a name for myself just to make a name for myself. It was all about, hey, I want to know how to find like anybody. And I want to know like, hey, if there's a technique that this person knows, I want to know. So I want to network with this person to build a relationship so I can kind of be in the know-how of industry. And so that's kind of what led me into sourcing, and what intrigued me to that group was it was limitless possibilities on finding people and finding skills and understanding how data analytics play into talent acquisition and understanding, different kinds of approaches for different industries. And so it's been an interesting ride for sure.
Give us an example on how you used to approach when you were in education of the data behind an individual getting a 4-year degree versus a 2-year degree versus no education and the salary breaks. You have a ton of certifications and put the effort into elevating your career through certifications. Have you seen in your personal life or others around you how certifications has made an impact on your career?
Well, for my career, it's definitely made an impact, because it provided me with some foundational knowledge that I've just been able to just continue to build off of. Knowledge that, maybe I wouldn't possess, right? Or at least as formalized, right? And it's also their industry respective credentials. So there is a certain gravitas that comes along with that, having being able to say, hey, I have all of the AIR certifications. I have SourceCon Academy certification. I have a Sourcing Institute certification. I'm OSINT certified. Like there is a certain element of professionalism behind that to be able to say, hey, I've attended these courses. I've obtained the knowledge. I've certified my understanding of the concepts taught, and I'm able to deploy that to my work. And I use it even now in a leadership role. I still use it. I use it more for training and development, but I still use it. Or if I need to pinch hit to provide support, I can go into my bag of tricks. I do think it's important, especially for those that are interested in making talent acquisition a career, whether it's you want to be a dedicated sourcer, becoming a researching SME, or if you want to just be a full life cycle talent acquisition professional, having certifications, being able to, build your knowledge base and also having that on your resume. Yeah, it's like if you're a project manager, a program manager and having a PMP, or if you're in IT and you have certifications, right? It certifies that you have a certain knowledge base and expertise. And so I definitely think it's helpful.
You hit on helping people and putting other people first in more of a servant leadership mindset. Can you walk us through your experience of transitioning from an individual contributor role, being a sourcer, being a recruiter, and transitioning into a leadership role where your sole purpose is elevating your teams to be the best they can be?
Yeah, I would say that it's been a great process, one that I've really enjoyed. One of the reasons why I wanted to get into leadership has been because I wanted to impact teams and organizations at a greater level. And, one of the mechanisms to do that certainly is by getting into leadership and having that opportunity to have that amplifying effect. But like all transitions, there's certainly bumps in the road. And certainly I think for me, one of the biggest things I had to learn to kind of change is not necessarily holding the individuals on the team to the same expectations that I hold myself to. It doesn't mean that you lower the bar of excellence, but what it does is that you have to understand that there's different approaches for different individuals, because everyone doesn't communicate the same, doesn't think the same. And it's important to be able to reach people where they are when you're a leader. And that goes to be a servant leader, right? Because it's real easy to be like, well, I'm the boss. And so therefore, if you want your job and you need to get on the same page, right? That's one school of thought. I think I've evolved to more of a school of thought of, hey, I'm in a privileged position of leadership. And my goal is to get everyone to be as successful as possible. So my focus needs to be, how can I reach every individual on the team that I manage in the way that's going to meet the needs of the organization, but also in a way that's going to resonate with them. I think that takes a lot of work. I think in a different way, it's more challenging to be a leader because it is less about you and more about what can you be doing to benefit your team. But that resonates with me because I like challenges. And so it's one of those things. It's kind of a gratifying exercise of me being more people centered. When I was in full desk and I was doing my own thing, I could just focus on, I was only responsible for me. And I was going to make sure that I was going to be successful. So that was not a problem. But when I got into leadership, it was, well, it's not just about me. And just because my way works for me and that doesn't mean that that's going to resonate with everyone. So I need to figure out how I can connect, just like when we connect with candidates, right? Same kind of concept.
Technology has reshaped how we approach recruiting, especially from the AI driven applicant tracking system, social media sourcing. What are some of the most exciting technology advancements that has reshaped the way of recruiters and how they operate today?
Well, I think obviously automation is a good thing because I think it helps to give time back to recruiters to do the main thing that that moves the needle, which is to have connections with candidates. Because at the heart of what we do, it's always people centric. In the area of cleared recruiting, where there's a disparity between supply and demand, the ability to be able to create that human to human connection, to be able to influence, to be able to stay on people's radar, to be that, 1 to 3 companies that they think about when they're ready to make a move. That's still going to be there. So automation, where that plays in, is helping you as a recruiter or sourcer to be able to, keep people on your radar, work with your messaging, help to improve, provide analytics about, hey, are people responding? Are people reading your emails, your messages? Is it capturing the attention of the audience that you're seeking to engage? I think all those things are certainly very helpful. The different mediums that are out there with being able to connect with people, whether it's like, voicemail drops, or whether it's, text messaging campaigns, whether it's, email drip campaigns, all those things afford recruiters, when done right, the ability, and sourcers, when done right, the more time to just be able to have those conversations with people once they do respond. That's really where I think it really fits in. Obviously, talent market analysis is always a part of this process as we evaluate where we need to focus our attention to and things like that. But I still think at the heart of what we do, it's still going to be a people centric. You need to have people who are able to answer questions and guide people through that process, especially for more senior level roles. Like that to me is not going to be replaced by any artificial intelligence, because people are still going to want to talk to another human being when making a life changing decision, or the more professional and senior level and C-suite level kind of roles.
What advice do you offer to individuals who are just starting their journey in the recruiting field right now?
I think the biggest thing is to kind of get plugged in. One of the ways that I got plugged in was, I went online, Twitter, formerly known as X. I followed, recruiting thought leaders. I had lists, certified, recruiters and sourcers, and followed them and would comment on them. I went on Facebook and found all the Facebook recruiting and sourcing groups, would comment. And same thing, obviously, with LinkedIn, same thing, right? All of the pages, follow thought leaders, get connected, would, get onto the recruitment blogs. That was really pivotal, because I would say just as much success in my career has been had by building my own base of knowledge through certification. I would say about 50% was also just by networking and really meeting people. I mean, I've formulated so many relationships with people that I've either never met, I've only met a handful of times in person through conferences and stuff like that, that all originated just through like Facebook groups. I mean, I literally came out of nowhere. I worked for, like I said, a government, a commercial, mechanical contractor that was responsible for recruiting for niche positions across the Mid-Atlantic. And no one was going to apply to my positions. I had to figure out a way to figure out how to find these people.
Who is that one person that really comes to mind when they significantly influence your career?
I'd say Steve Levy was one that always kind of gravitated towards me. Pete Radloff was another one that we had actually worked at the same company a long time ago at hireEZ. He was in TA and I was in admissions. I knew of him. Then when I got into TA, we were able to formulate a relationship. Trish Ruderka was probably one of the first, and she was a sourcing to me, and she was one of the first people that took time out of her own day to get to know me and kind of answer questions that I had. Derek Zeller was another individual that really influenced my decision, included recruiting at all. I never really had a huge relationship with Derek in person, but he was very active online, and I introduced myself, I commented on a couple of things, and he and I got to chatting a little bit here and there. And one day I was pondering making the leap to cleared recruiting. He hopped on the phone with me and, just gave me some source of encouragement. And I like to think that if it wasn't for that, faithful conversation, maybe I would have never gotten into cleared recruiting and had the success that I've had in my career as a result. That's always stuck out.
All of those people probably have similar attributes of being top level recruiters. What do you think the top three a recruiter needs to have in 2024 to be successful?
Someone who is just curious. And what I mean by curious is the ability to ask questions, to learn. I think that's super important for a talent acquisition professional or source. I won't even hire you if I don't think you're curious, if you're applying for a sourcer position. I mean, that's one of the criteria. You got to come off as someone who is just inherently very curious about everything, because you need to have a research mindset to it in order to be a successful sourcer. The next thing is not necessarily a people person, but someone that is friendly, willing to talk to anyone, whether you're, I mean, listen, there's extrovert, introverts. Sometimes I like to just chill by myself too, but when I have to put it on, I can put it on. Like, so you need to have the ability to be friendly and have conversations with people that you don't know and just be willing to open up and be authentic. I think that's important. The last thing I would say is that's super important is drive. Talent acquisition and sourcing is a always high demand. What have you done for me lately industry? And you need to be able to push yourself, to motivate yourself to do the things that you don't want to do, but you got to do them anyway because they need to be done so that you can ultimately get to where you want to be. Whether it's, hey, I got monthly goals I need to meet each month and I want to be a performer, whether it's your annual goals, whether there's bonuses, whatever the case may be, you got to have, you got to have a high sense of discipline in terms of being driven. I think those three characteristics really help people to be successful as talent acquisition for lifecycle professionals or sourcers.
Is there somebody in your network whom you consider to be an up and coming star or future recruiting leader based on those three attributes?
I would say a couple for different reasons though. Jocelyn Kimbrough. Jocelyn is fantastic. She's a great sourcer. She's a great trainer. So she's definitely someone I think should be highlighted. She's an excellent people person, really cares about people. So Jocelyn Kimbrough at Optima, she works with Tangi Pettis, who's an awesome leader. She's someone that believed in me and got me into the speaking circuit. And, we knew each other from afar and we quickly became friends. So Tangi, shout out to you. And Jocelyn Kimbrough, she's an up and comer for sure. Kristen Dimke, she's someone that I've met and she has just solid background, strong sourcer, super in tune with what it takes to kind of be a next level sourcer in the industry. Another one that I think of is Michael Chuadan. He goes by Chewy. He's part of the Bullying and Bruise. He's been around for a while. I think what he's doing with Bullying and Bruise has been pretty. His co-host, Carrie Collier. Carrie Collier for sure. She's recently gotten into leadership. She's been sourcing for a while, and her and I, we actually met back in like 2000. I want to say 2018 or 19 when she was working for another company than the company she works at right now. She has a passion for sourcing. She's very super curious. She's getting into people leadership. I think she's probably going to be one that's going to really kind of take off and fly.
Yeah. Very specific leader that really comes to mind that supported you throughout that change. And what lessons did they teach you that you implemented into your specific leadership style?
Yeah. So I think for me, I'm a hard charger and I'm pretty intense. I'm goal driven. I've done multiple marathons. I compete in jujitsu, which is a very intense sport. Like I'm that individual that if you tell me I can't do something, I tend to be like, okay, well, let me show you that I can. Right. Like, so I'm very driven in that way. So for me, I've been fortunate to have two leaders that have a slightly different approach. They're more willing to kind of let people in certain instances learn from growth opportunities, not necessarily always try to prevent something from happening, but sometimes you let people kind of come along and tailoring the approach to be a little bit more cognizant, meeting people kind of where they are and kind of being able, developing a ramp up plan, right? I tend to have a very high sense of urgency, which for some people, they love that. And for some people, it can be a little overwhelming. And so I I've been fortunate to had leaders who were very deliberate, very strategically focused, and are willing to kind of play more of the long game to ultimately get to where they want to get to with developing people and things like that. So I've been very fortunate in that way. My current boss has been highly instrumental to my development. And even my previous boss, I had two previous bosses who really supported me and really believed in me and put me in opportunities that were going to stretch me because of their faith in me. And I wouldn't be here without their support.
What is your favorite recruiting tool that you can't live without in 2024?
I'd say my brain, because my brain has all the information of all the different various techniques. I would say that I really like hireEZ's capability as an aggregator. And, I love Chrome extensions, but I tell you, nothing beats the good old noggin in terms of understanding how to leverage those tools. And also, if you don't have the ability to get to those tools, understanding how to do a top level domain search, understanding how to infer in order to be able to uncover profiles, bios, and stuff like that.
What's the best interview question?
I think the biggest thing kind of points back to what I talked about, which is, I always ask candidates this: what is it that you're looking for in your next position that you currently have in your current position? I think that's always a good one.
And then you can take that answer, and when you're closing in the offer stage, you can repeat that specific thing if that new job offers what they say they don't have.
Exactly. That's the biggest key. If you offer that solution, you run the right to people to offer that up.
You have a favorite book that's really shaped your career?
Favorite book? I'd probably say the one that I use all the time that I have over the past several years is the Full Stack Recruiter. I have the first edition, the second edition, third edition, Jantigazi. It's just a great resource material to have at your desk.
Last question. What is the biggest accomplishment that comes to mind in your career?
Biggest accomplishment? I would say for me, my biggest accomplishment is seeing the success of people who've had the opportunity to lead and mentor and how they've been able to develop. And even individuals, maybe at first were not very sold on the approach, how they've accepted and been able to grow and develop and achieve success as a result. I think that's kind of the biggest compliment and biggest win that I've had in my career, is seeing that happen for people.
Awesome. Any other things that you want to share with the audience as we wrap up?
Keep learning. And I know right now with, there seems to be some feeling of uncertainty in the industry. And the best thing that I would recommend would be continue to invest in yourself by, learning new skills about, what it takes to find people, learning what metrics help to move the needle for you. One thing that I always strive to do that I think is super important is understand what are the goals for the business unit I'm supporting in the organization. And I always tie my efforts, the teams that I manage, their efforts, their results, to how it helps to advance the goals for the organization. I think that's super huge when trying to continually to communicate the value of talent acquisition, the value of sourcing. So that's a drum that I beat on constantly. I never stop. And you can't afford to stop. I would say, over the next year, build it into your process, figure out what's a good workflow to help you achieve your goals, and be able to have conversations with your managers, with your hiring managers, your direct leaders that you report to, about how what your efforts are contributing to the department and to the organization meeting its goals. That's a huge value add.
As we wrap up this amazing episode, take a cue from Junius's experience and knowledge that he shared that can elevate your talent acquisition game.